23rd ranked Illinois, 5-2, coming off of a bye with a 2-2 record in Big Ten play. Most recent game was a 34-16 loss to Ohio State. They're traveling to a Washington team who's returning home from a trip out to Michigan where they got pounded 24-7. And Michigan, honestly, watching that game, they left probably 17 points off the board. Washington left off 3. That game could have been so much worse. And Jedd Fisch said he didn't do an adequate job preparing his team for that game. Seems pretty similar to what Washington looked like against Ohio State with the fake field goal and the debacle that was. Before I continue, liking the video, watching the video all the way through, and commenting your thoughts down below are the best ways to support the channel as they help push me into the algorithm, help me to receive a larger paycheck that I can use to reinvest in producing elite analysis for you all. Subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell, sharing the video around, and supporting us in other ways that you can find out via the description are other awesome ways to support our operation at College Football with Sam. We are becoming the best. We want to be the best. Thank you all for making that possible. And how once they got in the red zone, I know Ohio State's red zone defense is amazing, but it seems like Washington didn't believe in themselves. Well, now you're not playing Ohio State, who is the best team in America per the polls and definitely a top 3 or 4 team. You're not playing Michigan either, where you had to travel to the big house, and they were a top 15, top 20 power rated team. You're playing an Illinois team that is top 30, maybe top 25 best at power ratings at home. You should win this game. It's why you're 5.5 point favorites. If you are Illinois, you are 5-2. Your 2 losses are to an Indiana and Ohio State team who are top 2 in the rankings, top 4 at the very worst in the ratings. Indiana or Ohio State, same with Alabama, Oregon. I think of the argument to be anywhere from 4th to 1st in power ratings, not any lower, not any higher. To play 2 top 4 teams and get aced by both of them, there's not really any shame in that when you're Illinois. Win the rest of your games, you'll possibly be in the playoff conversation. You should win this game because Washington is in no way close to Indiana or Ohio State. They are not. Indiana would beat Washington by probably 40 points if they wanted to. Ohio State decided to turn on the game control, the burn clock feature in NCAA 14, and they beat them 24-6 while kind of being comatose on offense in the first and early second quarter. Let's start off talking about the Illini here. So Illinois, as I mentioned, fringe top 25 team. I think the 23rd ranking they have it's respectable. They're not totally overrated. They're certainly not underrated, I don't think. I mean, when you're 56th in points per play margin, 0.051 points per play margin, that means you only score about a 20th more of a point for one of your plays compared to one of your opponent's plays. It's not all that impressive. It's just not, especially when you have 5 wins. And the reasoning why Illinois has 5 wins with that low points per play margin is against teams that are not Ohio State or Indiana. They typically win the turnover battle. They usually are able to generate enough passing offense and rushing defense of their own to get ahead of their opponents and force their opponents to put themselves in situations where they generate turnovers. And then Illinois snowballs you by winning the turnover battle, by having a run game that kind of comes alive as the game goes on, and they out-physical you. But watching them play against Indiana, USC, Ohio State, I think that this team has some semblance of a good team, some aspects, but they also have other aspects that they're going to have to improve on out of the bye if they want any hope at beating a Washington team that is very good at generating explosive plays, both running and passing, similar to Indiana. And it's also a road game, just like that Indiana game. And Washington has a good enough run defense, again, similar to Ohio State and Indiana, to where they'll probably force Luke Altmaier to do a lot and his receivers to do a lot. Now, Washington in no way, shape, or form is the secondary of Illinois. or secondary of Indiana or Ohio State. I'd actually argue that a healthy Illinois secondary is better than a healthy Washington secondary as well, but that wasn't the comparison I was trying to make. Anyway, 5-2, 2-2, and technically if you win out, beat Washington, beat Rutgers, beat Maryland, beat Wisconsin, beat Northwestern. Not really any of those outside of maybe Wisconsin, I would say, are gimmies, but there is a path to winning all of them at 10-2. You can't tell me that Illinois would at least, you can't tell me they wouldn't at least be in the conversation there. This is a team that is strong on the defensive front, weaker at the secondary, in part due to some injuries and inconsistencies and lack of quality depth. And on offense, it's the inverse of that. So Illinois is strong defensively at the lines of scrimmage and on the defensive front. Illinois, outside of their left tackle, is pretty porous on the offensive line. Their running backs are Big Ten West running backs, good but not great. Tight end, I would say, is good. Wide receiver and quarterback are great. So they're stronger on the perimeter offensively, stronger in the trenches and up front defensively. Altmaier is a quarterback who's playing at certainly a top third level in the Power 4, could even be at a top 6th level, which would indicate that he's a top 10 quarterback, because there's around like 60, a little over 60 Power 4 schools. He's somewhere in that range. And Hank Beatty and Justin Bowick are pretty impressive wide receivers. I think that Illinois is a team that, as much as Bielema wants them to play this physical smash mouth football brand, they are much more of a pass attack first, rely on your quarterback and receivers to air it out and win games type of offense. And defensively, very stout, depending on the day against the run. I'd especially say this is the case when they're at home. On the road, I've seen it against Indiana, seen it against Purdue, a little bit early against Duke. It's a little bit of a different story here. So what you should hope for if you're an Illinois fan or inside the locker room or the coaching staff is that with the bye, you can travel better because you've had more time to prepare. You can rest up and make sure that you can give this your A-game effort. And ultimately that you can do against Washington what you have against every team except for Indiana and Ohio State, which is win the turnover battle. You're facing a team that does not have the athletic and size and coaching advantage over you that those two teams do, at least in theory. So maybe you can outcoach them and catch them with their pants down at times. That's what you're hoping for here as an underdog. For Washington, playing host, playing the favorite, they are viewed as better almost across the board in power ratings. Not by a lot, but I don't know of any power rating service that has Illinois as the superior team to Washington. And at the same time, which kind of piles on, Washington is hosting the Illini here. So Washington being favored by 4.5, 5.5 points, I think makes a little bit of sense. And when you look at what Washington has been able to do at home, handily beaten UC Davis, handily beat Rutgers, gave Ohio State a game for close to 3 quarters, pulled away from Colorado State late, against Washington State, which is an away game but not traveling across time zones, which that's going to be most of Washington's away games, is either traveling across states or across time zones, or across multiple states rather. They did pretty well against the Cougars, but against Maryland, they probably should have lost that game. Clutch win, came back, outscored Maryland 24-0 after Maryland scored 20 points in the first 3 quarters, and it was 20-0 Maryland at one point. Against Michigan, look, Michigan, as I mentioned earlier, could have won that game by 30 points if Samaj Morgan could catch the football, or if they had Justice Haynes at running back 1. Michigan was operating kind of down in that game, personnel-wise, and they were clearly the better team, even factoring out home field advantage, the travel, and the early kick. So what you're hoping for here is, now that you're at home, you're going to be stronger. Your opponent is going to be dealing with the same adversities that you did a Saturday ago, and you can play off of that with being this explosive team through the air, having this apex quarterback who's kind of your version of Kyler Murray. And Illinois does not have Michigan or Ohio State's personnel defensively. They're not as talented, they're not as deep, they're not as disciplined, they're not as physical, they're not as big. Michigan has some physical specimens at edge and linebacker, and they have a lot of depth at D tackle. Ohio State has a physical specimen at D tackle. They have some specimens at linebacker, and I would argue personally that Arvell Reese could probably move down to edge and be their number one pass rusher. Illinois has some depth. I mean, they got, Dylan Rosiak on the interior. They have James Thompson Jr. They got Kurt Neal. They have Gabe Iacus. I mean, they have some good players, but they don't have what those teams do. So you're top 15 in EPA per drop back with a 0.27. You only allow a 34.8% rushing success rate against an Illinois team that wants to run the ball. And while your offensive line is not good, and I've been very critical of the Washington offensive line, it was a big part of the reason why I didn't think they'd be an amazing team this year, is in order to win in the Big Ten and win at a high level, just in any conference, but especially the Big Ten and SEC, you have to have strong lines of scrimmage play. And Washington just does not. They do not have a lot of depth there. They don't have appropriate size. They're not where they want to be. But Illinois is not exactly that team either. Michigan is. Michigan's run-blocking offensive line, I think, is pretty good. Their defensive line is one of the best in America at shutting down the run. Ohio State's similar, more so with their linebackers than defensive line. A part of that's their scheme. Offensive line-wise, they're kind of mediocre, if not below average at run blocking, but their pass blocking is phenomenal, and they get the ball out quickly, and they have a wonderful quarterback and wonderful wide receivers. Again, with the pass blocking, wonderful tackles. Illinois doesn't really check any of those boxes that Michigan or Ohio State did, outside of maybe the wonderful quarterback, instead of wonderful wide receivers, just good wide receivers. So, as Washington, you're hoping that as the more talented team, the fact that you can probably do everything Illinois wants to at the same level and in parts better, you're hoping that home field advantage and the travel and probably the more balanced offensive attack, the more sustainable one, is able to win out here. And ultimately, I think that's what's going to happen. I believe that while Michigan was able to confirm some things that the Ohio State game made me very skeptical about for the Huskies, Michigan is getting better every week. Ohio State is one of the top teams in America, if not the top team. And I keep saying one of the top, if not the top, because we don't know yet. Washington is one of the best teams Ohio State's played this regular season. We saw what Michigan just did to them, and I don't think Michigan is one of the 10 best teams in America right now. I don't. They have work to go there. So that doesn't help Washington's case to be a definitive favorite against an Illinois team that looked similarly against the Buckeyes the way the Huskies did, and that got plastered by Indiana, but I think Washington would get plastered by Indiana too. That still goes to my point, though, that with the travel edge and the fact that Washington can match Illinois at quarterback, match them at receiver, they have a better running back, their offensive line isn't that much worse, and their defensive front is stout. I think this is very much like the Illinois versus Duke game, except Washington will not, since they're at home, because outside of really that Michigan game, DeMond Williams Jr. was not unsafe with the football. I think that Washington won't turn it over in the same fashion that Duke did. And that will really help them to win in clutch fashion. They did it against Maryland. They pulled away against Rutgers in the second half. If they can prevent Illinois from coming out and just winning the scripted drives early with that extra preparation time, I like Washington to really start winning the second half here. I think that Washington's the better overall team with the better overall staff, and I believe that they will have a really good day passing the ball and forcing Illinois to pass the football. Looking at Big Ten standings before we get on out of here, both of these teams are 2-2. so they're not in the top half of Big Ten standings right now, but the odds are that whether it's Northwestern or Minnesota or UCLA or, maybe Iowa, maybe Michigan, maybe USC, definitely not Oregon. I think Oregon's, the best team out of that 3-1 category. These teams can find themselves toward the top at the end of the year. They will be favored in most of their remaining games. Illinois every game from here on out outside of this game, and Washington will be the favorite in every game outside of when they host Oregon to close out the year. I'm so excited for that game. But I'm picking Washington to win, and I am picking them to cover. Wouldn't be shocked if I was wrong. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure, if you haven't already, to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment your analysis and thoughts down below so I can reciprocate my thoughts with you in the comment section, and check out anything on these end screens that are up here. Whether it's a recommended video or playlists for teams that I'm talking about in a preview, prediction, or a reaction, make sure to hit the notification bell on those, scroll through them, and watch any suggested videos if you are interested. Thank you for helping College Football with Sam become the best and the biggest college football brand and channel on YouTube and other social media platforms. We will reach that one day because of your support.